Welcome back, guys, to another video brought to you by your one and only literary Pharaoh. And this fight, this Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez fight, is an impossible fight to predict. I've been watching so much content on this fight, trying to wrap my mind around it. There are certain moments where I'm like, okay, I'm leaning towards one fighter winning. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see them winning. And then I'll hear something else that makes me sort of rethink my approach, and I'm like, no, they can't win like that. Maybe the other guy's gonna win this way. And it's just been back and forth. And I think that the lazy approach to take would be just to say Shakur Stevenson is the more skilled fighter. And I don't know if we can actually say that. I think that if you look at their resumes, if you look at their past fights, and look at the way that their fights have ended, you can make the argument and say that Shakur Stevenson is a more skilled fighter because he's put more of his skill set on display. We've actually seen his skill set on display consistently, right? Whereas with Teofimo Lopez, there's some inconsistencies, right? We have moments where he looks great, he looks like a world beater, and then there are moments where it's like, how come you don't look like the way you did before? I don't think that there's ever been a fight with Teofimo Lopez that he just looked bad. I just think that when he raised his level of action against, what's the guy's name? I just can't believe I just forgot his name. We're just talking about it. Lomachenko. When he fought Lomachenko, I think that's been the one fight that everybody reverts back to. They say, oh, look at the way he looked against Lomachenko. But then again, the triangular theory tends to sort of insert its ugly head in that, right? We look at how he looked against a great elite fighter, and we're like, okay, hold that same measure of action with every fight that you fight. Like, keep that same sort of energy with every fight. And what we have seen with Teofimo Lopez is that he is truly a chameleon in the sense that he truly adapts his fighting towards his competition, which is a dangerous thing in some regard. And in other regards, it's a good thing. You don't know what you're going to get with him. What I do know is that when the level of competition is high, he raises his level. And this is something that's been consistent with all the videos that I've been watching, all the content that I've been looking at, and even my own eye test. I've seen him raise his level of competition based upon who he's fighting. Now, I'm not saying that he's taking people lightly. I'm not going to say that, but I do think that there's a level of what Teofimo Lopez thinks is going to be worn on his sleeve. You ever heard the saying that people wear their emotions on their sleeves? Well, with him, he wears his sentiments on his sleeve. And what I mean by that is that whatever thought process that he holds before a fight, whether he's sort of taking a fighter lightly, or maybe he's not training as hard. If his thought process is not 100% into it, you're going to see his performance reflect that. And I think that that's what we've been seeing with Teofimo Lopez. With this fight with Shakur Stevenson, I don't think you're going to get that. You're going to get a high level performance from Teofimo Lopez. There was a podcast that I was listening to, and I think Sean Porter was on there. He was interviewing some guy, some light skinned guy. I don't know what the guy's name is, but he looks familiar. He looks like he's a comedian. And the guy said something to the effect that Teofimo Lopez is more of the twitchier, quicker fighter, more athletic fighter. And he said that Shakur is more skilled. And he ended up saying that if there's anyone who can offset a more skilled fighter, it would be the fighter who's more twitchy. And what he means by that is just quickness, elusiveness, explosiveness, athleticism, right? So I started to think, and I think I said this before on another video. What if the twitchiness and the athleticism, what if we put that in a category of skill rather than trying to separate it, right? We think that Shakur is skilled up here and Teofimo Lopez is less skilled. But then we say that Teofimo Lopez is more athletic up here, right? We raise the athletic bar and the twitchiness bar for Teofimo Lopez over Shakur's. But what if I tell you this? What if you can follow me here and just strongly consider thinking on this in this vein? Let's take everything that they do and just mix them up into some sort of a mixture, create some sort of a collage to produce the content or produce the essence of what we're trying to get to here, right? I believe that athleticism in and of itself is an ability, but it's also a skill. Um, so that's what's making me very, very cautious in how I see this fight. Initially, I just thought, oh, Shakur easy because he's just more skilled. But Teofimo Lopez is a hard guy to beat. And even the loss that he had against Kambosos, it wasn't like Kambosos dominated him. Yeah, he got dropped the once by Kambosos, but he also dropped Kambosos. Kambosos barely finished the fight. If the fight went on for a couple of more rounds, Teofimo Lopez would have won that fight. It's just that he just had a slow start. I believe that Teofimo Lopez was a little bit too aggressive in not taking Kambosos seriously at all. He kept lunging in, being very predictable. And we've seen how Kambosos' career has gone. He's not that elite of a fighter. But again, styles make fights. We can't inject or insert the triangular theory in this and try to say, well, he beat this person and he should be able to beat this person. No, the matchups is what makes the fight. So for this particular matchup, I'm looking at both guys, Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. And I'm asking myself a lot of questions. And I'm asking myself, I'm like, okay, um, how can either one win? I know how Shakur can win because he's always showed it. Stay on the outside, control distance, pick apart his components, slick defense. Then on the slick defense thing too, which is a skill, I would argue and say that Teofimo Lopez is not too far off in terms of his slickness. Because of his athleticism, it allows him to be slick. See, there are two ways of showing your slickness. Shakur's level of slickness is him being calm and calculated and doing it in a way where it's fluid, right? He kind of just slips. He doesn't, there's not too much movements. There's not too much showboating. There's not too much drunken master type of thing. All right. You know, second five, Eddie Gordo, the guy that, dancing around. He's not going to Eddie Gordo it. He's going to stand right there in the pocket, relatively being flat footed, and just kind of move, good head movement. He does it the textbook way, the way that you would actually teach it if you were teaching it out of a textbook. That's what Shakur is. Shakur is a textbook fighter. When you look at Teofimo Lopez, you see a fighter who is just as slick, but does it in his own way. I don't think that Teofimo Lopez is going to be easy to hit as people are making it seem. And I definitely think that Shakur Stevenson is not going to be easy to hit because his whole career is predicated on him not getting hit, sort of like a Mayweather kind of thing. The only fighter, I think Timothy Bradley said this on his channel. He said that there's no way to beat Shakur Stevenson, but there's a blueprint on how to beat Teofimo Lopez. But I would say even that Kambosos fight could have been a draw. To me, I just think, it counts against his record, but I don't think he came in that fight. If they fought again, he would annihilate Kambosos. But let's say, give Kambosos his credit, right? He beat Teofimo Lopez. And so Timothy Desert Storm Bradley, he says, oh, there's a blueprint on how to beat Teofimo Lopez, but there's no way to beat Shakur. Well, every fighter is undefeated until they're not. If anybody can beat Shakur, it'll be Teofimo Lopez because he has the twitchiness, the athleticism, he has the power. His twitchiness, his athleticism, I put that in the category of skill. We can't just sit here and act like, oh, Shakur's just the most skilled. The way he does it looks more skillful. But I would argue and say that having athleticism and the ability to move away from punches and explode in and come back out, causing your opponents to miss, is a skill as well. Can we, without equivocation, say that, let's say we put them on a scale of ranking skill. Let's say we put Shakur at a 10. because that's the consensus. Everyone keeps saying he's more skilled, he's more skilled, he's more skilled. But I want people to reconsider that, like to think hard about that when you say he's more skilled. Is when you say more skilled, are you talking about the way he makes it look? Because skill cannot be put into a vacuum. It doesn't look the same with every particular fighter. Every particular fighter has their own particular skill set. And part of being an individual fighter, part of being unique, is that your skill set is going to be predicated on what your strengths are, whatever you're good at. So we know that Teofimo Lopez has good feet. He's athletic, right? Very squishy, like everybody says. Well, his defense is not going to be predicated on him being flat-footed like a Shakur and just dodging punches and slipping punches. And he's able to do that. I'm not saying he can't do that, but his way of showing his skill is not going to be the way that Shakur shows his skill, because they're two different fighters, two different styles, and two different approaches to their fights. So let's say Shakur Stevenson is put at a 10 for his skill. People act like Teofimo Lopez is a 5. And they're just saying, oh, he's just a puncher. He can box. And he can punch. See, we have to stop. We have to start thinking for ourselves. And I had to do that. I had to kind of step back and look at everything objectively. And I'm starting to point out the good things of Teofimo more, because they are good things that he does. I know initially everyone was like, oh, the skill set of Shakur. He's slick, Shakur is skilled. So is Teofimo. Teofimo Lopez is also slick. Now, because of his athleticism, he takes more risks. Sort of like that was the knock on Terrence Bud Crawford. Is that, oh, he gets hit a lot. He comes in, he gets hit. Well, sometimes as a boxer, in order to get yours off, you have to be willing to kind of sort of take a hit, take risks, calculated risks for sure. I believe because Teofimo Lopez trusts his power and he relies heavily on his athleticism, sort of how Roy Jones was, right? But I'm not nowhere comparing Teofimo Lopez to Roy Jones, but I'm just giving an example there. When you rely heavily on your athleticism, you can jump in and jump out, take risks, and you may get hit and get caught with shots, which makes onlookers look at you as, oh, he's not defensively sound. Oh, look at him. He's not a good defensive boxer. Well, I'm here to tell you guys this. Every fight that a fighter fights, it's a new fight. We as the fans make the mistake of carrying their past experiences and sort of trying to drag their past experiences into the present. But which is normal, because I'm doing that. We all do that. In order for us to kind of gain or glean some sort of insight or gain some sort of prediction in how we think the fight's going to ultimately turn out, we have no choice but to roll the tape and look at their past performances. But I'm here to say this. We have to shatter the old. I think that the mindset of a boxer going into the boxing match matters. I think that the matchups matter, which you always hear the proverbial saying about styles making fights. That matters. I think we're going to see Shakur fight the way that he normally fights. I think what we're going to see on fight night, January 31st, we are going to see a Teofimo Lopez fight in a way that we've never seen him fight before. We're going to see a Teofimo Lopez perform in a way that we haven't seen before. These two guys respect each other too much. There's no way in hell that Teofimo Lopez is looking at Shakur Stevenson like a Cambosis. And there's no way in hell that Shakur Stevenson is looking at Teofimo Lopez like a Pat. Right? The level of respect that both of these fighters have for one another is going to cause the fights in the early rounds to be very boring. But because it's a fight that's based on IQ, the IQ is going to come first. Primarily is the IQ first, because you're thinking it out. You're collecting data, right? And I've always compared Shakur Stevenson to an AI robot. He's like a technician, a master technician. But don't get that misconstrued with me, with you thinking that I'm implying that Teofimo Lopez is not intellectual in terms of his IQ inside the boxing ring, right? Both men have their own unique ways of collecting data. The confidence of Teofimo Lopez is his only crutch, or his only kryptonite, if I can use that accurately. Not his crutch, but his kryptonite. Because if he abandons skill, which he has, and tries to rely heavily on athleticism, he's going to be picked apart. Teofimo Lopez has to be very, very intentional of when he chooses to use athleticism and when he chooses to actually use boxing skill. You see, Teofimo Lopez, believe it or not, I know a lot of guys may leave comments and say, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I could make the argument that he's more skilled than Shakur. I could make the argument that he's more skilled than Shakur because of what I just said. He has more options, right? He has more tools, but knowing when to pull out the tools is going to be very important. Shakur is one dimensional. You know what you're going to get from him: precision, tactician, technicality, fundamentals, range, movement, taking calculated risks, frustrating fighters because you can't really get a beat on him. But the unorthodox style of Teofimo Lopez, with the athleticism that he has, because he doesn't have a cookie cutter approach. Shakur Stevenson has the cookie cutter approach. It's very textbook. I always compare it to when you look at the jump shots of Ray Allen. Let me use a basketball analogy here to make you guys understand what I'm talking about. When you look at the jump shot of Ray Allen and you compare the jump shot of Ray Allen to a Stephen Curry, I would well, you don't even have to make the argument. It's clear that the better form was Ray Allen. The better shooter is Curry, right? The better form in terms of their shot is Ray Allen, but the more potent shooter in terms of hitting more threes at a frequent clip is Curry. In this fight, the better tactician is Shakur. He has the better form. He looks the part. He looks textbook. Teofimo Lopez is that wild card because remember, the way that Curry shot the ball was more almost from his almost like a push shot. He would get it and kind of like launch it. He didn't do the typical jump shot. When you think of a jump shot, you literally think of somebody actually jumping and shooting the way Ray Allen did it. That's textbook. Teofimo Lopez is Curry. Shakur Stevenson is Ray Allen. Now, I'm not saying that I think that Teofimo Lopez is better than Shakur. Me making that analogy is not to say that one's better. But the point that I'm making with that analogy is that the objective in basketball is to make the three. How you make the three, it doesn't matter as long as it goes in. What I'm trying to tell you with Shakur is that his skill set may not look as textbook as Shakur, but there's a skill set in there. And within the skill set, he has multiple dimensions within his skill set because he can push the athletic button and do his athletic thing. He can pull back the athleticism button and push the technical, basic, fundamental boxing button, and he can go there. So there are different ways that he can skin his cat. Whereas with Shakur, there's only one approach. But that one approach is so consistent and efficient. It's so good and hard to beat. But if anybody's going to beat that, you're going to have to be able to switch up your layers of approach in terms of the way you attack Shakur Stevenson. You can't just be all athletic the whole fight. It's going to pick you apart. You're going to give him too much intel. You're going to have to switch it up in different rounds, or even within the round, switch it up. One person that can throw off the rhythm of Shakur would be Teofimo Lopez because of exactly what I just said. The ability to be athletic and the ability to be a boxer, the ability to be a puncher and the ability to be a boxer. Shakur is just a boxer. He's not a puncher. So when you talk about skill, what do you mean by skill? Are you saying skill? So we all have to be the ones to determine what skill means to us. If you're going to rely on boxing pundits and rely on what everybody else is saying, then you're going to just take their brain and insert it inside your head. You might as well let their brain be your brain. I'm different in that regard. I take what people say, but I start to think of it. I start to think about it for myself. I'm like, okay, what is skill? Right? Some people are gifted at certain things, but that gift can be a skill. right? Um, Power is a skill. Now, you may say it's not. Some people are born with it. Skill is something that you can work to get better at, right? Shakur, no matter what he does, he's never going to be considered a power puncher, right? He's not going to be considered that. But there are things that he can do to be more effective with his power. That's why power punching is a skill. Athleticism is a skill. Being twitchy is a skill. Vince Carter, those dunks he was doing, you could say, oh, he was born with hops. So that's a skill. Yeah, not everybody can do it, but it's nevertheless, it's a skill. So let's not marginalize Teofimo Lopez's skill set by just automatically giving the skill category to Shakur. I believe that being slick and using his athleticism in terms of Teofimo Lopez is a skill as well. So ultimately, this is what makes it a difficult fight to predict because there's so many hypotheticals. There's so many what if, what ifs, what ifs. This is how you know this fight is going to be exciting, and the ball is in the court of Teofimo Lopez. Whenever I hear boxing analysts talk about their predictions, more people, when they talk about Teofimo Lopez, they're talking about if he does this, if he does that, if. You know what that means? That means that Teofimo Lopez has more ways to be effective. The ball is in his court. Like it's his fight to lose or win. We know what Shakur is going to bring. Shakur is going to be Shakur. Textbook, cookie cutter, master technician, master skill. But the wild card here is Teofimo Lopez. And he has all of the abilities and skills to throw off Shakur Stevenson. The reason why Shakur Stevenson was very excited for this fight is because he knows for the first time in his career that this is going to be the one fight that's going to test his boxing acumen. It's going to test his boxing pedigree. The other guys that he's beat them. He understands them. But the reason why he's always eyeballed Teofimo Lopez is he knows what Teofimo Lopez brings to the table. And I commend Shakur Stevenson for reaching out to Teofimo Lopez to make this fight happen. All right? I commend him for that. He's daring to be great. And he wants to challenge himself. And I don't think that he's being what's the term? Being sort of humble in a sense of when I hear him go to these, talking shows or these podcasts, and he says, when I say he, I'm talking about Shakur Stevenson, when he says things like, no, man, Teofimo Lopez is very good. No, I'm taking him seriously. I don't think he's just saying that just to say that. I think he really, I'm not saying he fears Teofimo Lopez because no boxer is going to be afraid of anyone, but he knows in his heart of hearts that this man that he's fighting, Teofimo Lopez, is going to be his greatest challenge. For anyone to think that this fight is going to be a walk in the park, that means that you're counting on Teofimo Lopez coming in unfocused and not prepared. And I doubt that's going to happen unless he's drugged on fight night or has some kind of catastrophic injury or something like that. I don't think that we're going to see a Teofimo Lopez that we've seen before. I think we're going to see the best version of himself. I've seen the best versions of Shakur. I've also seen the bad versions of Shakur, especially those fights where he had hand issues. I don't count those fights against him. That's why you have to look at every fight in its own particular context and not try to use past fights as a way to label or identify what a boxer is or what a boxer is not. If we all agree that Teofimo Lopez raises his level of action and raises his degree of performance when he fights boxers that are at a higher pedigree than him or that are high, and I'm going to say higher than him, but that are high in the pecking order. If we know that to be true, I would make the argument, whatever happened with Lomachenko, that's the past. So let's say his Lomachenko moment was back then. Well, Lomachenko to the second power is now. And I say Lomachenko to the second power, I mean that he's now fighting another guy that he's relatively there. He's actually an underdog in this fight. A lot of people are picking Shakur to be the winner. He was also an underdog against Lomo. Okay, I'm going to say this. But I'm kind of trying to remember everything that I heard people say. Hold on, let me turn on this light. Okay. I'm kind of going back and remembering what people said. Shakur Stevenson is going to frustrate T.O. What if I told you that Teofimo Lopez frustrates Shakur Stevenson? You say, how is that going to happen? Shakur Stevenson is a mover. He's slick. What does slick mean? Like, people always say slick. What does that mean? You guys don't think Teofimo Lopez is slick? You think he's just a come forward Mexican style boxer, rock'em sock'em robot kind of guy? No, he's not that. Again, go back to the analogy with the Ray Allen and Steph Curry thing. Both jump shots are accurate. Both do it in different ways. Ray Allen, perfect form. Shakur, perfect form. Stephen Curry, buckets, three-pointers, consistently. Form may not be perfect, but it goes in. The style of Teofimo Lopez is in textbook. But it takes a guy like that who's not textbook to beat a guy who is textbook. You know why? Because textbook can only read textbook. It doesn't provide context. Just like when people who rely on analytics in football, they say, well, if it's fourth down and this distance and this yardage, you do this. Sometimes you got to throw out the analytics and just rely on common sense. When you factor in quick twitch muscles, twitchiness, quickness, and instinct, which are all great things that Teofimo Lopez has, and I would argue are better than Shakur's, that he has the necessary ingredients to frustrate Shakur. Everyone keeps thinking that Shakur is going to frustrate T.O. What if Teofimo Lopez frustrates Shakur? What if Shakur can't get a beat on Teofimo Lopez because of all the movement, and then the times where he decides to actually box, then he decides to do all the movement again? What if Shakur Stevenson can't get a read on him? And what if Teofimo Lopez sneaks in and gets nice pot shots, nice power shots, boom, and gets out? What if Teofimo Lopez is the more active boxer in terms of activity, not just throwing punches, but moving around? Everyone just assumes that, oh, Shakur's the mover and the runner. What if? We have to factor these things in. We have to bring these things up because we don't know until fight night. But you guys are, which is normal to do. We all use empirical evidence and empirical data. We just look at the past fights and say, okay, these are the things that I've seen Shakur do. These are the things that I've seen Teofimo Lopez do. So they're going to do this in the same fight. No, because the mindsets, the psychology of the fighter going into the fight, factoring in who they're fighting, is totally shifted and changed. Now, am I saying that Teofimo Lopez is going to be a totally different fighter? No. He's not going to turn into a southpaw. No, that's not his style. But what I'm saying, the approach. If you go back and look at the Kambosos fight, he had no respect for Kambosos. The way he was lunging in, that was so irresponsible, defensively irresponsible. He did not respect the power of Kambosos. He just thought he was going to just take Kambosos out quickly, and he paid the price. You never do that. Every boxer has the ability to KO you, and he saw it. He saw it happen to him. I think he was a little bit overconfident. He took Kambosos lightly. But we also saw him look great against Taylor. We also saw Teofimo Lopez look good against Barbosa, right? So, we know that Shakur Stevenson is not a come forward fight like a Barbosa, but we also know that he's also a fighter that fights well off the back foot, right? This is why Teofimo Lopez has to be very, very careful in how or when he decides to go forward and attack. Because if coming forward and attacking is his modus of operandi for the whole fight, if that's his modus of operation for the whole fight, and he's just saying, I'm going to come in, fight's over with. Shakur's too good. He's too calculated. He's AI personified. He's going to just pick you apart. He's going to calculate. It's like Terminator. He just knows what you're going to do before you do it. He's going to just pick you apart. You have to throw him off. A lot of feints. But these are things that Shakur is capable of doing, which is why I think that Okay, let me say this before I end, and I want you guys to think about this. I'm gonna ask you guys this question and leave a comment. You know, sometimes when you have two great fighters that are put in the ring against one another, they usually bring out the best of one another, right? You know, you know, they say iron sharpens iron. If I fight a guy that's great, they're going to bring out the best out of me, and vice versa. In this fight with Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez, ask yourself this question: which fighter has a higher ceiling? What I mean by that, after watching both fighters fight in their careers, which fighter has shown you that they're capable of going to another level? Or which fighter has shown you that they're capable of going to another level, but they haven't really done it, but you can see it. It's almost there. I say that Teofimo Lopez has more of a higher ceiling. Like I said, you know, when you fought Mayweather, you knew exactly what you were going to get when you fought Mayweather. There weren't levels to it. He was just a tactician. He was too quick, too slick. He picked you apart. It was hard to hit him. His defense was immaculate. That's Shakur Stevenson. I'm not saying Shakur Stevenson is Mayweather. So don't leave a comment here saying that I'm saying they're the same guy. I'm giving a comparison. I'm comparing. I'm just giving you guys where my thought process is coming from. He's in that ilk. He's in that classification of boxer, the Mayweather type boxer. That's who Shakur Stevenson is. You know what you're going to get with him. He's so textbook. There's Ray Allen's jump shot. There's no room for improvement. He jumped. He let the ball go at its peak. It was perfect. You can't really improve on perfection. Now, I'm not saying that Shakur is a perfect fighter because no fighter is perfect. But what I am saying is that his style is very perfect, which is why it makes him hard to beat. Kellerman, a lot of other boxing analysts and boxing pundits say the same thing. But we haven't seen the best of Teofimo Lopez. Even the fight against Loma, I don't think that was his best. Loma was overwhelmed. Loma was a smaller guy, and he took advantage of it. And his mindset going into that Loma fight was very, very focused. He was very calculated because he knew he was fighting a very good guy. And that's a guy that fights to the level of the competition. If Teofimo Lopez fights to the level of his competition against Shakur Stevenson, he has a very good chance of beating him. And he has a very good chance of upsetting the world. When I say beat him, I don't mean like it's going to be BTA. It's going to be a very close fight. But I think that this idea that Shakur Stevenson is going to run away with the fight, I think many people are being disingenuous, and a little bit of cognitive dissonance is in play, because I think that the easier way to choose, or the easier path to choose, is just to say, oh yeah, he's more skilled. Skills pay the bills. Yeah, skills does pay the bills. And Teofimo Lopez is just as skilled in his own way. In his own way. So that's what I think. And I still can't make a prediction. But what I can do is say that I'm giving you the way that I think that Teofimo Lopez can win. Be unpredictable. Use your athleticism to your advantage. Do not fight Shakur Stevenson's fight. Don't try to outbox him. Try to outbox him at certain points. When you know that he hasn't captured your rhythm, which is why you have to be very, very unpredictable within the rounds, not round by round. Right? They're 3-minute rounds. So at the 1 minute 50 mark, half of the round, switch up. Then at the last half of the round, switch up again. He's gonna have to do different things. He can't go in there and try to outbox a technician, because now you're fighting his fight. But I think that he can do it because he has a skill set. He has the ability to do it. He has the movement to do it. He has the quickness to do it. Who's quicker? Teofimo Lopez. Who's more powerful? Teofimo Lopez. Who's more slick? I don't know. They're both slick. They're both slick. They're both slick. Their mentality makes you think that Shakur is more slick, because Teofimo's mentality is to put on a show for the fans. So he's more willing to jump in there and take the risks that Shakur Stevenson will never take. Because remember, Shakur Stevenson made a statement, F the fans. Like, I'm not trying to put on a show to get beat up. even though I could win getting beat up. And even when he fought William Cepeda, he said, I would never do that again. I stayed in the pocket too long. So just because a guy gets hit more doesn't mean that he's less slick. It's a mentality. Anybody can back up and fight. Well, I'm not going to say that anybody can fight off the back foot, but if you don't want to engage, there are many ways to fight a fight and not get hit, but that's not boxing. It's not to completely try to avoid getting hit, because when you open up to hit somebody, there's a likelihood that you're going to get something back in exchange, which is another punch, either to the body or the jaw or the temple. You're going to get touched. That's boxing. You're not fighting a punching bag. A punching bag doesn't have arms to hit you back. You're fighting a real person that practices, that trains, that's skilled just like you. So this idea that, oh, Teofimo Lopez doesn't have good defense, BS. You guys are going to be very, very alarmed and very shocked this fight, because it always happens. I remember I was shocked. The Devin Haney and Norman Jr. fight. I didn't see that happening. Nobody did. Everybody thought that, oh, Norman Jr. was going to come in and just knock out Haney. I did too. That's what happens when we take past events and we think that the past events are going to mirror each other, that you're going to get the same replicated event inside the ring. You're not going to get that, because you're getting two different fighters, because styles make fights, two different mindsets, and the psychology of the fight means everything. And we all know as a collective, and this has always been consistent, that Teofimo Lopez always fights to the level of his competition. So if he fights to the level of his competition, we're going to see a level of Teofimo Lopez that we've never seen before. That's the wild card. We know what we're going to get with Shakur. Perfection, tactical, technician, breaking you down, picking you apart. What if, like I said, Teofimo Lopez frustrates Shakur? What if the speed and the quickness of Teofimo Lopez frustrates Shakur? What if Shakur Stevenson can't get a read or a beat on a guy who moves around that quick, who's that slick? He's slick when he wants to be slick, Teofimo Lopez. There are different buttons that he has. He doesn't box safe, guys. If you saw him fight against Kambosos, he wasn't boxing safe. He didn't give a damn about Kambosos. He's coming in to try to finish Kambosos off. Of course, he paid the price. It's a risky way to fight. It's an irresponsible way to fight, especially if you don't respect your opponent. But do not think for 1 second that the way he fought Kambosos is going to be the way he fights Shakur, or even the way he fought Barbosa, or even the way he fought Taylor. You're going to see a different Teofimo Lopez. And the higher ceiling to me is Teofimo Lopez, because all of the things he can do, the movement, the slickness, the twitchiness, the speed, the power, there's too much. And you guys say that's not skill and say that, oh, Shakur is skilled. Then what is skill? Skill is an objective thing, I think, that we say. Because to me, skill is everything that you bring to the ring. Your quickness is a skill. His twitchiness is a skill. His power is a skill. Those are three things that I just mentioned. His footwork is a skill. There's 4 things that I just mentioned about Teofimo Lopez, right? His defense is also a skill. Go watch some of his fights, how he slips punches when he wants to. He can fight that way all night, but that's not his style. His mentality is to go get you. He's more of an aggressive fighter because he knows he has the power to put you out. Shakur doesn't rely on power, so he relies on pop shots, outpointing you, and which is nothing wrong with that. Styles make fights. But what I'm here to tell you guys is that guy, Teofimo Lopez, is tailor-made, if he fights the right fight, to bring a level of opposition against Shakur Stevenson that he's never seen before. And that's what scares me about this fight. Initially, I was all about, oh, Shakur Stevenson is going to win. He's technical, he's slick, and Teofimo Lopez is not going to be able to hit him. What if Shakur can't hit Teofimo Lopez? You guys keep thinking, oh, it's one way, but what if Shakur can't hit him? You think Shakur is William Cepeda coming in 100 punches every round? You think that? No, that's not Teofimo Lopez at all. So we'll see. I still can't make a prediction. I'm just giving you ways that I'm countering the narrative. The narrative is that it's an overwhelming majority of people are saying that Shakur Stevenson is going to win. I'm here to inject some skepticism to make you reconsider that narrative and to look at the things that Teofimo Lopez brings to the table and how he can use those things to offset a Shakur who's a supreme tactician, which can work against a person that's so technical. You could be so technical And when somebody is doing something that's outside your technique, you don't know what to do. You're lost. What if? What if? No one thought that Norman was going to get put down by Haney. No one. No one. When I say no one, that's hyperbole. I'm sure there were a couple of people, but the majority of fans, no one thought that. People were wondering how would Haney survive the power of Norman Jr. Wait till the fight happens, people. You will be shocked. Don't be shocked if Shakur wins. Don't be shocked if Teofimo Lopez wins this fight. I don't think people are going to be shocked if Shakur wins because he's going to win off of technicality, more shots, picking apart your opponent. But if Teofimo Lopez has been training the way he's been training, predicating his training on endurance, he knows that he has to keep up the movement for 12 rounds. In other words, the reason why he's working on his endurance, and this is me just thinking about this right now, he knows that I'm going to have to outmove Shakur and outdo him, not outbox him, but outmove him laterally. You know, back and forth, back foot action, knowing when to come in, but knowing when to box. He's going to have to mix it up. You're going to get the same Shakur. I'm going to say this before I end. The way they fight, people are undermining the IQ of Teofimo Lopez. Never, ever underestimate a guy who has rhythm, who can dance, who has good footwork. I know it sounds stupid, but people who can dance and move, it's rhythmic. They're very rhythmic. That's why certain people can dance to a beat, right? Rhythmic. Teofimo Lopez is a good dancer. He's very rhythmic. What this means is that he can catch the rhythm of Shakur faster than Shakur can catch the rhythm of Teofimo Lopez. I'm not saying that Shakur Stevenson can't dance. That's not the point I'm making. I want you guys to focus on what I'm saying. The way he dances, I've seen him in the ring, playing around, doing break dance, all that stuff. That's rhythm that you don't even have to learn. That's instinct. That's innate. So when people say, "Oh no, Teofimo Lopez, he's not slick, he's not skilled," no, he has an innate. It's already in him. He doesn't have to learn it. It's an instinct. That makes him dangerous, folks. I would make the argument that Teofimo Lopez will catch the rhythm of Shakur faster than Shakur will catch the rhythm of Teofimo. Everyone's thinking that, and during the earlier rounds, Shakur is going to be downloading data, then he's going to pick apart Shakur. What if I told you the opposite is true? That Teofimo Lopez is the one that downloads the data, and he's the one that picks apart Shakur. You say, we've never seen Shakur. I mean, we've never seen Teofimo Lopez fight like that before. That's what I mean. In this fight, you're going to see him do things you've never seen him do before. And that's not a stretch. That's not a stretch because we've seen it happen all the time in boxing. That's why it shocks us when we see certain things happen. What if, because of his speed and quickness and his twitchiness, that Teofimo Lopez is able to go hit him in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, all the rounds. Keeps up his endurance from round 1 to round 12. Shows patience. Hey, anything can happen. So people getting on YouTube talking this stuff about, it's going to be an easy, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as easy as you guys think. I don't think you guys think that we're going to see what greatness does to another fighter. We all believe Shakur is great. I don't even think we've seen the potential of Teofimo Lopez, but we will see January 31st. We will see. Leave a comment, guys. Tell me what you guys think. Who do you guys think is going to win? Right now, if you ask me, it's a toss-up. But I do know that I won't be shocked if Shakur wins. Right now, I'm probably leaning to the narrative that Shakur will win because of the way he fights. But if Teo is on his A game, this fight could either be Teofimo walks out with the victory or it's going to be a draw. If Teofimo Lopez fights a smart fight. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Leave a comment to me what you guys think. Peace, man.